Today is August 15th, 2022. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, I was gone for a week on a very little short vacation, and now that I'm back, I am back in the chair with my books behind me as I give you another brief discussion on pro-life topics. And the first two items, good news coming from two different states, Louisiana and Idaho. On Thursday, the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled against an abortion clinic in Shreveport, Louisiana. The clinic had appealed to the High Court to reverse another court's decision that in effect had closed three other abortion clinics in Louisiana, and the Louisiana Supreme Court declined the request, and the state's law has gone into effect. So this is great news for residents of Louisiana. As you know, here again, I go back to what the Supreme Court said back in June with the Dobbs decision, that states have the authority now to enact legislation governing abortion policies. And some states will pass very liberal laws, and some states will pass very conservative laws. And Louisiana has proceeded with a very conservative law that will ban most abortions. The other state, in Idaho, somewhat of a similar case, the Idaho Supreme Court ruled on Friday that the state's trigger law, that's the term that the pro-abortion people have used, complaining that these pro-life laws that were on the books, that it could not be enforced during the years that Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. Well, now that Roe is gone, these laws could basically resurrect themselves and take effect immediately, like a trigger effect. And so in Idaho, that's exactly what happened. But it's not really a trigger law, because the law that had been blocked, and now the state Supreme Court has released that injunction, was a heartbeat law. Basically, that would ban abortions once a fetal heartbeat could be detected, usually around the 6th week of pregnancy. So, this was a new law that the Idaho legislators passed quite recently, before Dobbs, but it was still recent. And up until Dobbs, it could not be enforced. Well, now it can. And the state Supreme Court has given them the green light that the heartbeat law in Idaho is now the law of the state. So good news for babies in Idaho and babies in Louisiana. Now here again, and I've mentioned this before, I know I'm cutting myself off here, Dobbs did not ban abortion. Dobbs gave the authority to the states to pass legislation one way or the other. It's not the genuine, true pro-life position, because we want to see all babies saved, whether it's at 6 weeks or 10 weeks or at 2 weeks. So, we prefer, as most pro-lifers would, to ban abortions from conception, because the baby is a human being at conception. At no point after conception is that baby anything but a human being. So, I saw part of a discussion on YouTube just a few days ago. It's not a new podcast. It actually was probably recorded before December of 2021. So it was before the Dobbs oral argument, which actually took place on December 1st, 2021. And the person being interviewed was Linda Greenhouse, who is a law professor at Yale, but for 30 years she had been the New York Times reporter covering the Supreme Court. So she has a wealth of knowledge on the court. She's very experienced, but she's very liberal. I mean, she is very, very liberal. And she supports or supported Roe v. Wade right down the line. Well, the discussion turned to the Dobbs case. And the person doing the interview asked the question, could the court look at the changing science on fetal viability? Now remember, the Dobbs case is based on the Mississippi law that bans abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. It was a direct challenge to Roe's fetal viability threshold, because the Roe said that up until fetal viability, the woman has the absolute right to decide whether or not she wants to continue her pregnancy or to terminate it. That was the threshold, viability. And Dobbs was challenging that. Well, this Linda Greenhouse made a statement that, she is adamant about it, but I have a hard time accepting it. She said that viability has not changed at all since 1973 when the Roe v. Wade decision was announced. And I'm thinking, gee whiz, medical science has changed a whole lot in the last 50 years. Right now, you list a series of procedures, a series of operations and protocols. A lot has changed in 50 years. And she basically said, let me get you the quote here. She says, the science hasn't changed. It's essentially the same as it was in 1973. And she said, the notion that science has changed is totally phony. Yeah. I'm sorry, Linda. You've got to start looking and reading some medical journals, because neonatology has changed a whole lot in the last 50 years. And admittedly, the 15-week point is not fetal viability. But 20 or 21 weeks might be. And then she argues that with the Roe decision, viability was 24 weeks. Well, that's not really true, because from my understanding, in 1973, when Roe was decided, the court basically said that up until the end of the second trimester, which is around 26 or 27 weeks, the woman has the absolute right to decide for herself. So it was not, the viability was not 24 weeks in 1973. It was closer to 27 or 28 weeks. So, for someone who should know what the Roe decision said, she's a little faulty in this area. A lot has changed on fetal viability. And now, and then she did say correctly, that viability is the firewall. If the court overturns Roe v. Wade and upholds the Mississippi law, it will effectively overrule Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, because that viability firewall will have been breached and removed. So I guess in that regard, she was right. But thank God for the Supreme Court with Dobbs. More states will come on board. It's not just Louisiana and Idaho. There will be more states coming. And in Michigan, we're in a different situation here in Michigan, because the pro-abortion people have this petition drive. We will know by the end of this month, so maybe in 2 weeks, what letter or number they're going to assign this referendum. We've seen like Proposal A or Proposal B or Proposal C. Well, it'll be probably a letter, not a number. And it would overturn every single pro-life law enacted in the last 40 years, and it would legalize abortion up to fetal viability based on Roe's position on fetal viability. So, no, basically 24, 25 weeks. So we have a lot to do, a lot of work to do to defeat this referendum. Also, we are dealing with the governor's race, Tudor Dixon to challenge Gretchen Whitmer. It's a no-brainer if you're a pro-lifer. It's a no-brainer. Gretchen Whitmer has to go. She has to be defeated, and Tudor Dixon is the person to do it. So as that campaign progresses, keep your eyes on the target, on the prize, Tudor Dixon. And I guess I'm going to close with that the situation in Michigan is very precarious. Now, Michigan has been a pro-life state for decades, and we want to keep it that way. So volunteer to work for Camels the Right to Life. Go onto our website or send us an email at info, I-N-F-O, at KAZOORTL.org. That is our website, or that is our email address. If you're going to be a volunteer, help us out to go door to door, passing out literature, talking to neighbors about this disastrous referendum that is coming down the pike. With that, I'll let you go. I'll see you next time.